Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Constructive Conversations. The intention of this podcast is to explore the mindset and actionable approaches that empower entrepreneurs to achieve success in all areas of life, while inspiring listeners to confidently pursue their own ambitious dreams. The reason I do this podcast is because 10 years ago, I knew I wanted to start a business, but I had no idea where to start, no role models to follow. So the goal is to provide that inspiration for new entrepreneurs and to provide fuel for those who are already doing it. Joining me today is Hamza Qureshi. Hamza is the founder of Six Figure Student. Today with Hamza, we talk about creating meaningful experiences and practical skill sets for students starting a business while still in school, the naive optimism of entrepreneurs, growing and evolving students into entrepreneurs, how to hire and retain great teams, reputation control, the necessity of personal branding, and many other great topics. You're going to want to listen right to the end of this awesome podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
That's great. So can you talk a little more about a six-figure student? What do you do and how did you get started with that? How did you start that company?
Absolutely. So I started a simple home service business in 2015 when I was a student in university, and I was doing health sciences as my major. So really, I didn't have any business being in business, but doing my small lawn care business with a friend, which I eventually grew throughout university by hiring a bunch of my friends, etc., taught me a lot about business, taught me how to market my products and services, taught me how to be persuasive in my communication, sell, manage people, etc. And it also gave me it also gave me a great financial advantage over your regular mundane summer jobs, where students were at that time making $12, $13 an hour. The minimum wage at that time was lower. I was able to make somewhere between 15, 20 to 25K in one summer. So by the end of university, in third or fourth year, one, I knew that I kind of wanted to go down the business route. And second, I really recognized the advantages that having my own business gave me as a student. And there were two advantages. One was the skills that I learned through the practical experience. So I wasn't just watching videos and I wasn't just writing notes down in a lecture. I was actually doing the thing, right? So I was actually out there selling and dealing with real clients and real issues and hiring employees, etc. So by third and fourth year, I found that I had more practical business skill set than the average business major student. And then secondly, I always thought because I was taking on debt going throughout school. I always thought, I'll graduate, I'll get a regular job, and then pay off my debt over 10 years like everyone else does. That wasn't the reality anymore. I was able to put myself in a financial position, which, no Lambos or mansions, but I was able to graduate without any debt, as well as enjoy my early 20s a little bit, being able to take a couple of road trips with my friends, or being able to do small things like go out to dinner and not stick to the regular burger, fries, and a water order just because that was the cheapest thing on the menu, and being able to order appetizers, like small things like that, just made life more enjoyable. And so those were the two advantages I recognized having a small business could give me as a student, even if it was a small, regular old school lawn care business. And I recognize, most students, they don't want to run a lawn care business. They don't want to run a window cleaning, pressure washing business, especially not for 6-7 years. But they'd be down to run it for a year or 2 years and get those two advantages out of it, which would be meaningful experience to derive practical business skill sets, and second, get a financial advantage over regular minimum wage summer jobs. And so that's what we set out to do with Six Figure Student. We packaged running a home service business into an 8-month experience, which currently our students can go through and get the practical business skill experience, as well as pocket 20 to 30K in one season without having the long-term commitment of being in that business for 5-6 years. And they get the same results that it took me without any mentorship, without any guidance, without any structure, 2 or 3 years to get. And they produce that result in 8 months. So that's what Six Figure Student does. That's how it was born. And for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been working with numerous students within the Ottawa region here in Canada to teach them about business and give them a leg up so that they can differentiate themselves from the crowd, from every other student who's graduating with the same diploma, same degree, same experience, same clubs, et cetera, et cetera.
That's great. I like that. So you realized, you had this experience while you were studying, and you said, this would be valuable for other students to have. So, rather than just continuing and growing that business, you said, let's make this available to other students. So that's really cool. And I think that is valuable. Do you agree with this? I've heard someone say, a year, or not even, a one season of sales, whether it's door to door, you're making calls of sales, is going to teach you more than, a 2-year business program. So would you say that's along the same lines as what you mentioned, like the practical experience, practical skill set that you gain from running the business is comparable to, multiple years of education?
I would go as far as saying that they're complete different things. I would say you can't get jacked by watching videos of doing push-ups. You have to do the push-ups to get the benefit of doing push-ups. You can't just watch videos about it or read about it. You have to do the push-ups, right? Business is a similar beast, where if you want to get better at sales, you have to sell. If you want to get better at marketing the product or service, you got to market a product or service. Yes, there is an aspect of the theoretical base that school might provide, but without the practical experience, you can't really apply it to the real world. And without practice within it, you can't ever be great at it. So I think you and I, we met in a position where we were going door to door, and we were pretty young at that time. I was in high school. And that for me actually built the basis of why I was able to build a business while in school for something completely different. I was in school for health sciences, but I had a base level, and the only way I had just enough confidence to launch my business was because I had done stuff like door-to-door sales before in a similar position that you and I were. And that gave me the confidence to be like, okay, at least I can go up, talk to a stranger, and sell them something that they might need anyways, right? And so that gave me the confidence, okay, well, let me just try starting a business, see where it goes. And eventually we were able to scale it. So yeah, kind of to land the plane, practical experience cannot be replaced by academic experience, and is extremely valuable, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to run a business. I truly believe school can't teach you how to do that.
And what was it like at that decision point when you're in your university and said, look, I have enough of a baseline of skill set that I want to run my own business? What was the inspiration, and what was going through your mind at that time?
I was working at Future Shop. It was a electronics store, kind of like Best Buy. It was actually under Best Buy. And so Future Shop, it was in March of 2015 that Future Shop merged with Best Buy, and everyone basically got laid off other than upper management, who they transitioned into Best Buy. So I was laid off, but I had exams coming up in April as a student. So I was like, okay, well, I got a severance paycheck of, $2,000-$3,000, great. And I have exams coming up. I don't have to work, etc. So I was happy. However, I also saw people literally in tears because those severance packages that were enough for me because I was living at home and I didn't have any expenses were not enough for people with families to feed. Now they were out of jobs and they have responsibilities and obligations. So I saw that happen in real time. That was one of the points in the back of my head, was like, look, an employer can let you go at any time and you have no security or control over it. Number two, I didn't know any better. So when summer came around after exams in like May, I was trying to apply for jobs. I wasn't trying to start a business, and I actually got just rejected. So I applied to like 50, 60 jobs, tons of interviews, didn't land anything. Youth unemployment rate was super high. No one wants to hire students because they're going to train them for a couple months and they're going to leave back to the school year. So I was without a job, and I had financial obligations to pay my tuition, to pay my textbooks, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, okay, well, I've done some door-to-door in the lawn care landscaping industry before with other companies. Let me just try doing similar thing just for some cash. So it never started out as this big business. I didn't even have a car. So I hit up my friend who was working at Canadian Tire at the time. He had a car, a 1992 Acura Integra hatchback, 2-door car with a hole in its floor, leaking gas tank, like perfect vehicle. So I was like, look, you have a car, I can go door to door. Why don't we become business partners and start this thing? So he was like, okay, well, I'm willing to try it. So he's like, okay, so I have a car now, not mine, but his. And I've got a lawnmower from the street and fixed it. YouTubed it, fixed it because I didn't have the money to buy one. And I remember and just printing out a bunch of flyers, going door to door, getting my first lawn. I charged $15 for my first lawn, and I did it in an hour and a half. So literally got paid like half of minimum wage. I had my mom drop me off at the corner of the street because I didn't have a car, and at that time I didn't have my arrangement with a friend. But anyways, long story short, I didn't know any better in terms of what I was stepping into. And I had this naive optimism of like, you know what, this will work out, because I didn't know the struggles or the challenges that a business owner can face. So we just kept on going. And eventually we got more sales. I was able to buy my own car. We were able to scale. I bought out my partner because he was in the engineering stream, etc. And I was in the track and field. I was on the track and field team at university. And every summer I would hire all my friends. They were in shape, they were, strong, etc. So we're in landscaping. So we would get to work with friends, make good money, enjoy our summer. So it was like really like the perfect summer job that I created for myself at first. And then eventually, I invested in advertising, brand building, CRMs, and then it became an actual business. But I would say, as far as like that 2015 Hamza in that summer, if he knew the challenges of running a business, he might never have started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard that before, the naive optimism. I think that's necessary to an extent. Yeah, even big CEOs of big companies saying, yeah, knowing, when they get asked, knowing what you know now, would you go back and do it? And some of them say no. It's like, no, that was crazy. It was a crazy ride. But it worked out for you. So that's great that you took that leap. And then what about the transition? So when you decided, rather than continuing on to grow the business, I want to turn around and teach other people how to do what I did, help other students. What was that like, transitioning into that area?
Well, look, I started a lawn care business not because I was super passionate about lawn care. I was never like, wow, like cutting grass. Can't think of a better time. Like, I started that thing just to make some cash with a friend to be able to pay my bills because I couldn't get a job. And so when I kept scaling it, I got more customers, got more cash in the door, etc. I was in love with the financial upside that it was providing for me. And I was also in love with the control I had over my own earning opportunity, my own schedule, my own outcomes, etc. That was what I was passionate about. I was never passionate about lawn care. And so as I got to like year 3 and I was able to scale it beyond 6 figures, etc., I was like, man, like I'm not that passionate about lawn care and landscaping, but now I recognize that I've had a certain path of self-development, which this simple lawn care business that I am not passionate about has provided for me, both in the financial upside as well as the skill development. And I knew for a fact, because I could see it within my own friends in university, people going through and working for big corporations at minimum wage, like Loblaws and Walmart and Amazon, whatever, right? And they were getting paid like minimum wage. They were barely making ends meet, etc., especially if they have their own financial obligations. And they were kind of stuck in that rut, and no one would trust them with the responsibility. And I was also seeing some older friends that were graduating university getting laid off by companies in a similar way that I saw people get laid off from FutureShop. They were going to work with startups, or they were going to go work with SaaS companies in sales, etc. Mass layoffs with nothing to show up for. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not passionate about lawn care landscaping, but I am passionate about the outcome that it was able to provide for me and the others around me. So how can I scale that outcome? And that was really the key question in then transitioning from running a lawn care landscaping business to then actually teaching other people how they can use and utilize and leverage a home service business, because now we've expanded to other industries as well, a simple home service business to increase their financials and increase their skill development to set themselves apart and go from being just a student to a student entrepreneur while they're still in school. And this will position them to then get a better career, or if they're going to go start their business, they're now going to be able to have better success or lower risk of failure in it, etc. So that's kind of where it came from. And I hate fake gurus. So like to this day, I still, like right now, I have a couple crews out right now that are rendering the services that we offer in lawn care and landscaping to this day. So I hate fake gurus, and we only teach what we have actually done. So I'm able to teach students how to build a six-figure business within the home service industries because I've done that over and over and over again myself, and that's what we stick to.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of response do you get from the students, and what kind of change do you see in them after they've gone through this? Ran a business instead of working at Walmart for the summer. What does that look like for them?
Great question. So very common that when we start talking to the students initially and when they start finding out about our program, they're very skeptical. Like there's a lot of skepticism. They can't believe it's real. They're like $20,000 to $30,000 in a summer. You're going to run your own business as a student. Sounds like a scam. That's the first thing that goes through their head, right? So makes sense because the outcome that we are promising is so far beyond what most students are used to. They think it's too good to be true. But what they don't realize is it's the furthest thing away from being a quick thing or being an easy thing. It's usually the hardest thing that our students go through up until this point in their lives. So it's a very, very challenging 8 to 10 month program where they're working a lot and they're facing a lot of challenges, both personally and in the business. And through that, they're able to grow and evolve into a person. And because of that, they're able to get the financial upside and develop the skills. So that's where they start off with. But at the end of it, the real win, it's not the money, even though the $20,000 to $30,000 is way higher than their average summer earnings, even though they have the skill to now sell and they can now use that for the next 20, 30 years of their lives. It's not the time management skills. It's something we don't really market, but it's something that comes up over and over and over again when we talk to our students who are graduating our cohort. And it's a shift in identity. And it goes from, I'm not sure if I can do something that isn't meant for me. So for example, being in business was not meant for me. My entire family's in medicine. I was in health sciences. Running a business was not meant for me. My thought process, my identity was not of a business owner, right? This is a similar story for a lot of our students. 2, it shifts from that to I can do anything I want and I can do anything I set my mind to as long as I put the work in. So it just goes from like, I'm not sure if I can do hard things or accomplish great things that are away from the average pathway to I can do anything as long as I work hard at it. And that is really the biggest wins that our students are able to derive from this program, because that identity shift carries on with them until the end, basically of their lives. And they're able to leverage that to do great things and stay above average.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's super valuable, that identity shift. And that's something else that you can't get from school, right? Like taking on the challenge of running business and then having that confidence and carrying that into whatever they're doing in the future beyond the service-based business they ran for the summer. So that's really great.
And people come into thinking like, oh, like I don't want to run a lawn care business or a window cleaning business or a pressure washing business. And we know people are thinking that. And this is why we created the program. Like, it's not about the lawn care business or the window cleaning business. The whole point is we can teach someone that how to do those services in 4 or 5 days. The whole point is within the rest of the 6 to 8 months, we're focusing on leadership, focusing on management, focusing on selling, focusing on marketing, conflict resolution, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really where the development is happening, is them doing hard things that they thought that might not be possible and actually overcoming the challenges, as well as getting the skill sets out of it, which, school actually discourages. School is like, don't take risks, take the right classes, get the right grades, apply to the regular jobs, make sure you get a safe, secure career, etc. But today's truth couldn't be far from it. There is no safe career. There is no security. Your only security is in the skills that you possess. So if you are graduating without any experience, without any real skill, and all you have is the ability to do really well on a Scantron card, you don't have a lot of skill security. And because you don't have skill security, you do not have job security.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you talked about, the students have to overcome the challenges of business, and I'm sure you face your fair share. So what's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your journey of entrepreneurship?
Great question. I would say 2 challenges. Usually all the challenges that we face are in my opinion, if I'm reflecting on this retroactively, are kind of a representation of personal challenges and personal mindset shifts that we need to have in order to then see those challenges in a different light, evolve ourselves, or be able to deal with them more effectively. So the two I would say would be one of the two would be people. And so specifically hiring and retaining great teams. And so what goes within that, and how do you create an awesome employment experience? How do you get someone to care for your business when it's not their business and deliver an amazing experience? How do you let go of responsibility and go from like, only I can do this job to, no, there are other people who can actually do a better job than I can, and I need to find that person to do it in order to build a business. So that shift, I think, is something that I struggled with initially, and it continues to be a theme which I want to continue to get better at and better at. So first of all, it went from like mowing lawns. I mowed the perfect lawn. And so I was like, man, like no one else is going to be this detailed in mowing a lawn. I was absolutely wrong. My team is way better than me at mowing lawns right now. And now it's like, okay, within management, within senior leadership of a company, et cetera. So it just keeps on climbing in terms of that challenge of bringing in the right people for the right tasks, the right responsibilities, and building an awesome team. The second one would be reputation. I would say reputation control. So I did, myself, and not just, I wouldn't take credit for it, just myself, but our team really within my landscaping business, we did a really awesome job of having a really great reputation, where we are one of the highest rated companies right now in the capital of Ottawa in Canada. Now, when it comes to six-figure student, because we are making such high promises, like I said, there's a lot of students that might think that we're a scam, etc. So we faced a lot of reputation damage this past this past month in September, where we were getting called scams. We were getting silenced on threads where our students would comment on the threads, sharing their real experience, and their comments would get deleted. So because we are up against a giant company that is in this industry, etc., we have a feeling that, one, we're facing attacks from them, as well as reputation damage from the student body themselves. People who think that this outcome is too amazing for them. Like they don't feel worthy of this outcome. And because of that, they tear it down, and they put it down so that it's, oh, now the world makes sense to them, right? It's like, okay, in my reality, if I call this a scam, then I'm not a loser, right? Not that I'm not good enough to take advantage of this opportunity. Mm-hmm. So we're facing that a little bit right now. And that's something that we've been navigating through, not letting it get to my headspace, managing my mindset throughout it, etc., keeping the team's morale up, etc. Like that was a real challenge that I've faced over the last 6 weeks, and we're still currently navigating it.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing those. And then on the flip side, what were some of the greatest successes and positive outcomes that have come out of running your businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, running the landscaping business has given me all the business education that I have so far. So everything that I know how to do comes from a traditional lawn care landscaping business. Along the way, I've also run a small media company, etc. So learned a bunch of things. But my number one takeaway from this entire thing was I need to do the things that I need to get better at in order to get better at them. So I need to put in the reps. So within those successes, I would say we went from mowing some lawns within the neighborhood to being one of Ottawa's top-rated lawn care landscaping business, where we control a decent amount of market share within the residential lawn care landscaping services, all the way from the extreme east to the extreme west and extreme south of the city. That would be on the lawn care landscaping end. Within six-figure student, we have helped numerous, I would say around 20 students by this time. And some of those students have hit, so notably, we have students hitting $60,000 to an $85,000 business within a 6 to 8 month period. And so if you're hitting $70,000 with us, we're taking you to Mexico as well. So we've had 3 to 4 right now, Mexico trip winners that we take all-inclusive Mexico trip with us. What is the biggest impact within that? Those students have then gone on to start their own businesses. So right now we have a alumni of the program that is 19, I believe, or 20. He has his own pressure washing business that does multiple 5 figures a month, and he's still a student. And he learned skills, and he built his base through our program. We currently have students graduating right now that came in being like, hey, I'm not sure if business is for me, to I can't imagine my life without being in business. And so really it's just like the personal development and the impact we're creating within the student community and within our cohort. The biggest success is yet to come, because I would bet a lot of money on, I'm not a gambling man, but I would bet a lot of money on, as an expression to, that a lot of these students that are graduating from our cohort, some of them will start a $10 million business. And we're going to have a coffee together in 10, 15 years. And they're going to be like, man, like it all started with a mowing company, a window cleaning company. And now like we have like this, we have a $10 million company, we help all these people, we create this impact, etc. So I truly believe the biggest wins are yet to come, because we are in it for the long term, and the long term to us looks like a 20, 30 year.
Yeah, that'd be great to see that progress from the alumni. Yeah, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and I'm sure you look forward to that, and that's really good to see. That's cool. So you mentioned running a media company, and just in terms of marketing, what does your social media strategy kind of look like? Whether that's advertising to customers or reaching more students. How do you approach that?
Would you like me to answer this on the personal brand 6-figure student-ish area, or would you like me to answer it from the lawn care landscaping?
Yeah, like what you're doing right now. So yeah, whatever's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, right now we're really focused on growing 6-figure student. So we have gone through about 7 content creators over the last like 9 months. We've had a lot of issues with content creators, and that could speak to them not being great or our recruiting and hiring process not being great. But we're making some changes there, and right now we're actually working with one of our past students. So he has started his own content business, and we went from him being a student of ours to us being a client of his. And so right now he has a whole team of editors, etc. So we are just focused on producing engaging content on 3 different brands. One would be our 6-figure student main brand, and then the second and third one would be my personal brand and my business partner Mo's personal brand. And so those are the 3 brands that we're trying to build right now, predominantly through short form video production on Instagram and TikTok. And on top of that, we have also started putting a focus on LinkedIn content creation. So those are a couple of the strategies that we're focused on. We're going to where students are, and students are mostly on LinkedIn, or mostly on TikTok and Instagram. And then there's some high achieving, super concerned about their future who are on LinkedIn. We're looking to reach them on LinkedIn as well.
And I like that you mentioned the personal branding, because that was actually going to be a follow-up question. Yeah. Can you just talk, what's the importance of personal branding? Why is that necessary? You've made it a focus. Why should business owners be thinking about their personal brand? Absolutely.
And I'll start with the fact that I actually hate personal branding. And I hate personal branding for me personally is because it's not that I don't like being on camera, etc. I like to be a private person, and social media to me is almost mostly a distraction. And that's just in how I use it, or how I fall into the algorithm pulling me in. But some of the most productive and best weeks of my life have been when I've deleted everything off my phone. However, the reason I keep coming back to it, because it is not an option, it is a necessity. And for us to build a brand, there is no other way. Like, if we don't build a brand, we will lose, because we're not going to get in front of our target audience. So it's either I figure out how to do it effectively without it affecting my boundaries and my productivity, or we don't figure it out and we lose to the people who are doing it. So the importance of building a brand online, just to kind of summarize, I don't think it's an option in today's market. I think it is a necessity, especially if your target audience is living on these platforms. But let's say it's not, right? Let's say it's not, even though most people's target audience is on Instagram and TikTok nowadays, and more so. Like there are people that, you know, grew up using Facebook and now are mostly on Instagram, who are, for contractors out there, are on Instagram now. They type in, you know, how to do carpentry, or I don't know, carpentry, or how to like fix up your lawn, or how to, you know, have better garden beds, etc., on TikTok. And because now they're becoming homeowners, they're starting families, etc. So they're on there. But even let's say that your target market is not on there at all, right? The personal brand becomes your best insurance policy, because if you're able to build a brand of people that you have given a lot of value to, that's really the only way to build a brand. Even if, let's say, your business goes down, which it can, right? Which it can. Your business goes down, you're out of business, etc. Now you can now take that personal brand and use it to create opportunities for you, whether that be through leveraging the network that personal brand has created for you, or it be through things like brand deals and sponsorships. But I believe it's truly one of the best insurance policies that you could create. At the worst of it, and at best, it is the best thing you can do in terms of really fueling growth for your business, because people like to buy from people. And so if they can see a face to a brand, you know, they're more likely to engage with it, etc. And there's a lot of research and reports on this as well. It's like people like to buy from people, and so company Instagrams or TikToks aren't doing as well, and personal brands are just taking over because of that personal touch.
I like how you call it an insurance policy, and the other way I've heard it described is you will always be you. So, you know, the company brand could change, it could be sold, it could go away, but you're always you. So you build that up, and that always carries with you to whatever company, whatever business you end up at. So yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Next is, so as far as I know, you haven't written any books. Do you have any books in you? And so if you wrote a book, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's kind of fun though. My business partner keeps asking me, "Hey, let's write a book." I don't know, man. I haven't thought about it too much. I would say it's actually in one of my goals though. And I do this planning like every year. I do my annual planning, and within that annual planning, there's like decade planning. And so really like work from like decades to 5-year plans to 1-year plan to quarterly plan to monthly plan, etc. And one of like my decade plans in like 2030 decade, like the next decade, would be to write a book. I haven't really narrowed down exactly what I would write it about yet, but if I had to pick a topic, I would say it would be something around, I would talk to young people. I would talk to people in their 20s. I would talk to people starting out their career, people who are ambitious. So that would be my target audience. I have a lot of experience with that audience. I would talk to them about finding their why and finding what they want to do. So how can you, because that's the number one question of like, how do I figure out what I want to do? There's a lot of young people in their 18, 19, 20-year-old ages are like, hey, I'm not sure what I want to do. I tried this thing. I'm thinking about it. How do you figure out what you want to do? I would say probably something along those lines, speaking from my own experience only, not as the ultimate expert in that region, unless I have built expertise within that, but from my own experience only. Or it would be a book on something specific, like, hey, this is exactly how you achieve X outcome by doing Y.
Yeah, like a playbook. But I like that, finding your why. I think that's definitely valuable, especially for young people. Can you give a tip? You know, if there's a 20-year-old watching who says, I don't know what I want to do and focus on, what can they do to, narrow in on their why and some more purpose and meaning?
I was recently listening to Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David, and his number one move is the first of the 5 moves is know yourself. And he had a quote in there. I might be misquoting it, but I forget who it was. But it's like, the 3 hardest things in life are diamonds, steel, and figuring out who you are. So figuring out who you are is super challenging. It takes a lot of work emotionally, you just being honest with yourself through experience, etc. But it's probably the number one valuable thing you can do, because up until you figure out who you are, you're going to pander to what society wants out of you, what your parents want out of you, what your spouse wants out of you, what your friends want out of you. It's like everyone else's story will have an impact of where you're trying to go instead of you knowing where you want to go in the first place. And so I would say, if you're trying to figure out who you are, I would recommend testing your limits. And that's something that I came across through my experience in track and field. And I ran competitively in track and field for, I think it was like 6 years, 7 years, something like that. Throughout university, I was on the varsity team. And really, that was in the physical and fitness domain where I got to test my limits, where we had workouts where I would feel like dizzy, etc. Like it was like to the pinnacle of my physical fitness in that specific domain. I got to really test my limit. And that taught me a lot about the rest of my life and kind of what I'm made of. And I would say number one would be to really test what you're made of. Jordan Peterson talks about this as well. It's like, hey, go and work a 12-hour day. Go work a 16-hour day. And like, where is that? Find your breaking point. Like, find out what you're freaking made out of. Because the worst thing that you can do is underserve your potential. At the end of your life, later in life, usually biggest regrets come from us not doing things rather than doing things. And one of the key highlights within that is I didn't do things that I knew I could have, which is really you saying I have underserved my potential. Like I was capable of this, but I actually did this, right? And so I would say really figuring out what your limits are in pick a domain of your interest, of what you like or what you want to test yourself into, whether that's business, whether that's career, whether that's physical performance, and test your limits and find out where they are.
That's a great answer. Test your limits to find out who you are. I just did that on Saturday. There's a book called 12-Hour Walk. It's by a world record holder, and he says just go out and walk for 12 hours, and it's the same thing. And then you start to find out who you are when you're pushing yourself to the limits.
Amazing.
That's great. So in that sort of same vein of finding out who you are, you've talked about mindset as well. What about like spirituality? Does that play a role in your business, and when you're coaching people? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And I love how you're touching on like all areas of life. So that is super important, something we coach on as well. Spirituality is huge. So over the last couple of years, I've grown closer to my religion. I'm Muslim. So I have really gotten clear of what my relationship with religion is and why it exists. Why do I follow this religion? Why is religion important at all, to me at least? And really boil down to morality. And in my head, I was like, okay, well, where do we get our morality from, right? How do we know what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing, right? So let's say we don't have religion. Who's telling us that? Usually we're kids, our parents are telling us that. But really, it's not our parents. It's whoever taught them that right or wrong when they were kids, and they're just passing it on to us. So if you just keep tracing it back, it's just like other factors, right? So it's like, okay, well, it might be the government or in the form of schools, university, or society, right? In terms of advertising and what's popular, etc. So, or society putting pressure on you if you're doing something wrong versus not putting pressure on you, what they view as something right, right? So, but we are very clear. A lot of people would agree that usually governments don't really have your best interest in mind. And second, neither does society. And so where can you really get an objective truth on what's right or wrong? Well, it would have to be from someone or an entity that is impartial, that is good regardless of how you do things. And that morality would need to exist in a vacuum as well. So for example, if your morality is based off of society and you're on an island, then what prevents you from doing what is traditionally wrong by that society? Well, it might not be viewed as wrong. So that's where I was like, okay, well, then that's where, if we are created by that entity, which I view as God, then that's probably the entity that will define right from wrong most impartially, especially if that entity created us. And then would that morality exist on an island? Yeah, absolutely. When no one's watching, right? Mm-hmm. God's still watching. And so that's really where my belief got stronger. I got closer to my religion, and I'm like, okay, well, if I believe in God, then I must believe in all the other things God says that are true, right? So that's where I started practicing my religion closely. So it plays a huge part in my personal life and my business life now, where personally it brings me a lot of peace, brings me a lot of reassurance, etc. It brings me focus on what you can do always and try your best. But ultimate outcome is not in your hand completely, right? Second is always do the right thing when no one's watching. And so that really plays a big part in my business as well. It's like there are, as business owners, especially if there's a lot of business owners listening to this, there are tons of moments where we can, because we are in control of everything, where we can do this or that, which might not be the exact right thing and no one would know, right? But in those moments to do the right thing, well, really, I'm a better man because of my religion, because that religion is what keeps me on track. I don't know if I would do the right thing in those scenarios if I didn't have my religion.
That's the the system of belief says, he's watching. There's someone watching. So that makes it easier, to make the right decision. So that's great. And it's fascinating because I find, I like to ask this question to business owners, and so many of them, there's a variety of beliefs, but the faith seems to be a common element. And I think definitely, like you said, it's very important to business and as well as personal life. And so I have a friend who's not a business owner, but a project manager in Calgary here, who's also Muslim, and he talks about the discipline of like daily prayers, and I have like a meditation practice that I've developed. And can you talk about the discipline and how that sort of translates into the rest of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I always viewed myself as a decently disciplined person, but like when you, for example, in our religion, we pray 5 times a day. And within those prayers, the first one is right before sunrise, and the last one is kind of before you go to bed. Well, it depends on when you go to bed, but like it's after sundown. And so really those 2 prayers kind of keeping you in check, especially the sunrise one, like knowing that you have that obligation, you've made that commitment, and again, God's watching, so do the right thing, and kind of having your priorities straight. So if you truly view this as a priority, then you get up, right, every single day, right before sunrise. Doesn't matter if it's Saturday or Sunday or a holiday or you're on vacation, it still exists. Like I said, the island test still stands true. So you obviously got to do the right thing. So that over the last, like I said, couple of years, as I've started practicing more of my religion, has only had a positive impact. Why? I get up early in the morning, I'm dead in the evening, like at night. So I go to bed early. I know I have to get up early, so I go to bed early, and I get like my sleep has been the best it has been over the last 5 years now, because I'm just more regimented. And like doesn't matter Saturday or Sunday. I actually love doing that. One of my favorite moments of the day are the mornings. And so I love my mornings. I pray, and then I usually do some kind of like morning movement. So whether that be like some jump rope walk or a run or whatever, it's just like the most peaceful part of my day are the mornings. And so, like that discipline of like, hey, doing the right thing at all times carries over to business as well. It's just like, hey, I view this task or view this responsibility as a non-negotiable priority. So I must do it regardless of my circumstances and all the excuses I can come up with. And that just translates to all other areas of life too.
Awesome. I like that term, non-negotiable. And I do some coaching with Dan Martell, and he's very big on non-negotiables. But I think that makes it, gives it an even higher tier of importance when, it's connected to your religion, right? Okay. We're getting towards the end here, but a few more.
Sure.
What's your goals within your company looking forward, next like 5-10 years? Sort of, what are you looking forward to in the future?
We want to become the leader in practical business education for young people, period. So we want to become the go-to place where young, ambitious people come to get a taste of entrepreneurship, learn a bunch of practical skill sets, and amass a bunch of capital, not crazy, but good capital, which they can use both of those things as ammunition to then go and start their next thing. And we want this six-figure student program to be a breeding ground for entrepreneurs, for young entrepreneurs, where we produce those alumni who go on to run 7, 8, 9-figure companies, and then eventually end up maybe hiring and working with other alumni from the program. And so that's the vision for the program, not program for the six-figure student in general. And that's what we're doing right now. We're focused in Ottawa. Next step for us is we're actually working on creating a location independent program where students from all over the country or even the US could take part in it. We are really making sure we're taking our time with it because we want to make sure that it produces a lot of value and it's the right structure, because so many online courses, etc., have such a high failure rate. People drop out, they sign up, they don't do anything. So we want to create a place where we can really help them achieve the outcome they're looking for as they come into the ecosystem of six-figure student. And on the second end, on the business, we want to really give back as well. So we have another brand called Elevate Con, and Elevate Con is our student conference. So we put this last 2 years, we started this last year in 2023, where we do an annual event and we bring in, it's an in-person conference for students to come and learn from entrepreneurs. And we bring in 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, and they do keynotes about various topics in entrepreneurship. They run workshops for them, and we create the entire experience at a stupid low cost and subsidize it heavily, where it becomes affordable for students. So students are able to buy tickets for like $20 to $50, whereas most of these conferences are like $400, $500, $600. So that is something that we want to scale as well. So scale our impact in giving back to the community as well, where the mission there is to make entrepreneurship more accessible. So if you only have $30, you can go and literally for a full day, learn from people who are running $10 million business. And that's something that we scaled from last year. We had about 50 people show up. This year we were at closer to 100. And so we want to really scale that impact going forward as well.
That's great. That's really cool. So being a springboard for entrepreneurs, as well as bringing that education, making it available to students. Those are some great long-term goals. So I have some rapid fire questions now. Just quick answers. So would you hire employees or consultants?
Employees.
Okay. Do you read or listen to audiobooks?
Both.
Both. All right. Favorite hobby?
Hiking, being outdoors, anything outdoors.
You prefer emails, phone calls, or texts?
Depends who's answering. If my assistant's answering the emails, then I don't have to do it. But if I have to answer, then it's such a hard question. Calls probably. Yeah, calls.
All right. Driving or being driven?
I've always driven I love driving.
All right. And this one might take a little longer, but top 3 books, nonfiction books, or they can be fiction, just top 3 books.
Damn.
And if not top 3, best 3 that you've read recently.
I'm looking through 1 second.
Yeah.
I would say recent. Let's do recent. I would say Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I think it was really, really good. We actually made a point to study that book. So I made my entire leadership team read it, and we went chapter by chapter, created summaries. We would discuss it and actually start implementing it in all of our businesses. $100 Million Leads by Hermosi, a really good book. And the original book that got me started towards self-development, etc., was High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard.
Cool. I have to add that to my list. High Performance Habits. Awesome. All right. Well, Hamza, where can people reach you? What's the best way to connect?
Instagram, great way to connect. Hamza Qureshi, HAMZ like zebra, Apple, RESHI, Hamza Qureshi on Instagram. Hit me up, send me a message. Would love to connect there.
All right. And who's the best type of person who should be connecting with you? Who are you looking to connect with?
Yeah, if you are a student entrepreneur, I would love to connect with you. So if you are actively in school, running a business, I would love to connect with you. Or if you are further along in your journey, let's say you're an experienced entrepreneur, you have a successful business right now, but you started when you were first a student, I would love to connect with you and kind of learn more about your journey.
Great. Well, Hamza, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Nick.